All right, Arizona Cardinal fans, this is the Red Rain podcast. This is episode 205. Please, once again, welcome in your host, the one, the only, Walter Mitchell.
Good morning, guys. Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter sporting an Oakland Sacramento A's hat. Excuse me. That bodes well for the auspices of spring, which here in Massachusetts seems like eons away after the feet of snow we've gotten over the last few days, and now it's snowing again. So we're getting snowed on pretty well here, but welcome back, Swearo Sam, our resident expert. I'm glad to have him with us here. This is an important show, I think. We got a lot of ground to cover, but first and foremost, we're going to pay our respects to Rondale the Rocket Moore, and we have the video that's going around X right now is really moving. So we're going to play that, and then we're going to talk about his tragic past.
I just try to come to work every day and show that I want to be a player in this league. So I don't really verbalize it, but I try to just go out there and practice as hard as I can.
Okay. Oh, what's wrong? What happened? Oh yeah, that's your job description. That's gonna be tough, you know. Okay.
Everybody, it's Rondale's birthday. Make sure you say happy birthday to Rondale. We just had an ultrasound for our baby, and they said it's bigger than him already.
I think I'm going to cry again 2 weeks in a row. Just totally heartbroken and distressed. It's just an unfathomable loss. And, when it comes to suicide, I lost one of my best friends, childhood friends, to suicide. And it's really tough to conceptualize and this and that. And particularly, my friend was about Rondale's age too. But, I just always had a sort of keen liking for Rondale. And I was always frustrated that we didn't take more advantage of his elite traits as a wide receiver. I thought we used him more as a gimmick at times. But as the news came in and I started to process it, it strikes me very profoundly that how Rondale may have been traumatized by his 3 years in Arizona for a variety of reasons. I mean, I know he had big plans coming in. I know too that he was highly endorsed by Kyler Murray. In that draft, Kyler, two of the players he wanted were Rondale and Creed Humphreys. But the Cardinals had made the trade for Rodney Hudson. And I think they probably would have drafted Rondale first anyway in the second round and hope to get Creed later or trade back up for Creed. But the Hudson trade, kind of nixed that out. but I think they were delighted to get Rondale where they did in the second round. The only reason why he made it to the second round was those perplexing, injuries at Purdue. And, but no one just put on a game tape like Rondale Moore did as a mere freshman versus Ohio State. That was as breathtaking a performance as I have ever seen in college football. And, I was just out of my mind excited to know we drafted him. But as we look at it now, he came in a good year in 21, and he contributed really well to that playoff season, and all that went on in that season. And it was his best year of the three, production-wise. He had the most yards that he had in a season. And, he did a lot of good things. He opened a lot of things up for us. But then, the falling out of that season was really difficult on everyone. We don't have to trace all of it, but 2022 with a team that, by all rights, should have been a Super Bowl contender, coming up with so many guys coming back and J.J. Watt healthy again and all that. And that just got derailed. And, and Rondale was, privy to all that. And he had an injury riddled year. And, and then the firing of Cliff Kingsbury and the stuff going on with Kyler, and HBO Hard Knocks on the scene and this and that. It was a traumatic year for everyone, all of us. And I'm certainly sure that season did not go as planned for Rondale Moore. But it's the 2023 season that really concerns me because, first of all, we got a new coach coming in. Second of all, Kyler's not playing for 8 games. Third of all, so he has to transition to another quarterback. Third of all, suddenly now we're a heavy 12 and 13 personnel team, which took a lot of snaps away from Rondale Moore. Because, he, as a slot receiver, if you're putting in tight ends instead of you're taking a slot out. So that was tough, and he had some good moments, especially this last TD, which we'll queue up in a minute, in 2023. But we're going to talk about this at the end of the show, and you're going to get quite a rant from me about tanking. I think it's the greatest insult and fucked up thing you can do to a football team ever. In being a part of a tank, I'm sure Rondale Moore wanted no freaking part of. None. And, this is a big year for him. It's moving year on year 3. It's like the third round of a major golf championship. This was moving year for him. And, he's just kind of a forgotten man at times because of all the other, where it became a run first team. There was just a lot of transition there. But he still did some really good things. Really good things. And, cue up that last touchdown of his. I mean, this was one of the great plays of that, woe-begone season. But look at this. I mean, and look at the dime Kyler throws. One of the best passes he threw all year. Over the shoulder catch. Willie Mays. And so the question becomes, how in the world do you watch this and 2 months later trade him for a quarterback to be a backup? You're trading a second round pick. This sort of mass cleaning out of Steve Keim picks, save Trey McBride was just brutal. I mean, I just don't know how in the world you could ever conceptualize trading Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder. And Desmond Ridder doesn't even make the team. And poor Rondale, imagine how traumatic that was. If you don't, some of you who've gotten fired from work and stuff, you understand this. That kind of a career happening for him had to be devastating. Plus, we've learned since the brotherhood that he had with his teammates in Arizona, with AJ Green, who still was talking to right up to the very end, with Hollywood Brown, who he's been buddies with ever since, with Kyler and others. He was one of the Bird Gang. And then just, send him unceremoniously, ship him off at such a low cost. And then, and then from there, he got caught in the path of the tornado. I mean, the double knee injuries, back-to-back seasons. And people do underestimate this, the wear and tear physically and emotionally on rehabs of that kind of nature. So, my question is, how traumatized was Rondale Moore by his 3 seasons in Arizona? I'm going to kick it over to the panel. Sam, what do you think?
Well, I think this is a terrible thing. I think it's a tragedy and a heartbreaking loss of a young athlete. Certainly his time in the NFL, and especially his time with the Cardinals, certainly didn't improve his mental outlook. But mental health is something that this country, as a society, has far too long ignored. Like you, Walt, I've had the terrible experience of having friends, relatives commit suicide at too early an age.
Right.
It's suicide as a result of depression and mental illness. This touches everyone. We read about this all the time. This goes around our community all the time, every community all the time. It's not just athletes. It really underscores an urgent need for our medical profession, our society, our communities to really address and do a better job of identifying and providing preventable help to those suffering from depression and mental illness. And you've got a kid here who's surrounded by team doctors, people who care about him. And unfortunately, it wasn't diagnosed, nothing was done. And you have another one of these, and it's tragic. It's something that really this country needs to address.
Yeah. Kyle?
Yeah, similar sentiment. It's a tragedy, and I really feel for his family in this situation too, because I know just how much it touches everyone just by knowing someone who has been through something like this. It ends up touching so many different people. And obviously, I've talked about it with Walter before. My father passed away from suicide a couple years ago now. We never had a diagnosis. We knew something was wrong, but we never really got any definitive answers. And, one of the things I learned from that experience is you just sometimes don't understand. And it's okay to not understand in some of those situations. I personally don't know Rondale. I don't know what he went through in Arizona or in Atlanta or Minnesota that led him to take his own life. Obviously, we can look at the circumstances around it, like you outlined, Walter, at the end of his time in Arizona and being removed from those friends and those relationships that he had built in his years in Arizona. The fact that, like you said, those rehabs can be brutal from injuries, and he hadn't played football in nearly 3 years. I mean, between, a couple preseason games where he got hurt, obviously, but, you know, you just don't really know in those situations. And, one of the things that I've always looked at in these circumstances is just, you can't understand, you don't understand, and these are impossible sets of circumstances to navigate. And, you don't know how it affects someone or how it got to that point. And sometimes you just can't understand. And maybe his family will get more answers about what was happening in his life. Maybe they'll have some sort of diagnosis after death, but sometimes you just don't know, and it's okay not to know in these situations. And I just wish the best for his family and everyone going forward, because it is really a tragic situation. And just in terms of a broad sentiment, I also talked about this when I believe it was Marshawn Nealand had a similar situation with the Cowboys earlier this year, which is like, these young people are not okay, man. I've worked with people who are, in college and young adults. Obviously, I myself am a young adult at this point, 24, going on 25, which is same age as Rondale. Marshawn Nealand was 23. Like, these young people really are not okay, and they're screaming for help, and they're asking for help, and there doesn't seem, not just mental health resources, obviously, but just looking for connection in the world, looking for something to make them feel a little less lonely or a little less isolated. Like, so many people I talk to experience symptoms of mental illness and loneliness and depression, and these kids are just not okay. And I keep trying to say that every chance I get when things like this come up. It's just that, like, kids are struggling these days. Young people are struggling. Young people are struggling to make the transition to young adulthood. And I've seen it for many years. It doesn't always end in suicide or diagnosable mental illness, but people are really having a tough time. And it's important to just check in on people, even if you don't know what's going on in their lives. It's sometimes just good to make sure people are doing okay. So that's also just a broad sentiment I like to add when tragedies like this come up.
Well said, both of you guys. Really well said. And, it's just so difficult because in my mind, Rondale should have always been a Cardinal. And I think he is. But, they should have never traded him, ever. I mean, I don't get it. It's not like he's a problem in a locker room. Players loved him. And I just think sometimes, too, NFL teams ought to consider the emotional impact that it's going to have on players when you basically say, we're giving up on you. And in this coaching staff, after 1 year, bye. And all you're worth to us is a backup quarterback. It's just really mind-boggling and, and heartbreaking. But you guys said it well. I mean, mental illness is a huge issue in this society. It's been a stigma for so long that people are afraid to talk about it and this and that, and not even consider it an illness and a health issue. I mean, mental health is huge for everyone. But I just want to, say, to Rondale Moore, that I loved him and that I love that he was a Cardinal, and I will relish that my entire life and bring that with me when I go. And I wished I could have done something, and I know we all do. But, sometimes, I mean, there's no way to understand it completely. You said it perfectly, Kyle. I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't know all of the circumstances. I do know he did one of the most beautiful things imaginable by taking his first paycheck and dedicating it to his mom and buying his mom a house. And for him to take his life knowing he was leaving his mom behind, meant it was really bad. Really bad. But I don't think it's even appropriate even to say when people commit suicide that how wrong they were, because we just don't know. I mean, we don't, like you said, we can't put ourselves in his state of mind. Not that I'm saying I would want to coach anyone out of it, obviously, but the fact that he was alone in his garage and put an end, it's just so heartbreaking. And whatever got him to that point is heartbreaking. And I'm just gonna really miss him. And I've been missing him for 2 years. Now, hope he's in a better place and at peace. And and scoring touchdowns all day long against Ohio State and against the Texans in that over-the-shoulder catch. So, all right. Well, we wanted to pay tribute to Rondale, and there'll be more to talk about with him as time goes on. But we're going to shift gears to over to what's going on videos with Kyler Murray, about Kyler Murray. And this stunning video came out. I want to thank my friend BC on X who drew my attention to it. If you could cue that up, cue the things that oh God, drawing a blank on his name. Sharp. Yeah. Warren Sharp, who's a sharp guy. He has these great videos. Well, he's showing us how really, really awful Kyler's passing has been since 2025 to these results. And if you cue those up, the video is a stunning watch. And not only did he do that, he talked about Kyler's, losing games to injury, and an amazing stat of how few games he actually played outdoors, and what and against the conditions were against adverse conditions were awfully rare for him playing outdoors. And he documented what the here we go. So Kyle, this is what Warren Sharp outlined in his video. If you will take us through this and read through it all.
All right. So this is the first part of it too. There's more after it as well. But on 25 plus yard passes, Kyler ranked 36th, last among 36 qualifying quarterbacks in completion percentage, 21%, and 36th out of 36 in EPA yards per attempt, which is essentially expected yards per attempt for people who don't know.
Yeah.
On 20 plus yard passes, was 45th out of 46 on EPA per attempt. I don't know. Is this in just last season or his whole time with the
This is since 2022.
2022.
So basically post-contract.
Got it. So since 2022.
Since the contract, correct.
20 plus yard passes, 45th out of 46 in EPA per attempt, 42nd out of 46 in yards per attempt, and 40 out of 46 in completion percentage. That's, again, just on passes 20 plus yards down the field. On passes 15 plus yards down the field, 51st out of 51 in EPA, 47th out of 51 in yards per attempt, and 47th out of 51 in completion percentage. And then on 10 plus yards passes, 43rd out of 43rd in EPA, 41 out of 43rd in yards per attempt, and 36th out of 43 in completion percentage.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, Sam, I mean, does this concur with the eye test over the last 4 years?
Well, of course it does. This is the eye test.
Yep.
And you throw in lack of leadership, lack of durability, entitlement. And this is why by March 15th, this kid's going to be looking for a job in the NFL, or maybe he'll just go become a professional gamer.
Right.
And this is why, you know who Kyle reminds me of? He reminds me of a young Malik Willis. Great arm, good runner, got no pocket awareness, can't process. And this is what we need. We cannot miss on our quarterback again, or we're going to have another 7 years plus of this.
Right.
So, I think the Kyler Murray story has been written, and the book needs to be shut on Kyler Murray. And that's probably what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 days or so.
Yep. And I don't think the odds of Kyler Murray getting traded are slim to none. You compound this with the contract and the durability situation. Kyle, read these games per season.
Yeah, 2021, 14, 2022, 11, 2023, 8, coming back from the ACL surgery. 2024, all 17, 2025, 5.
And that 5 was such a gift by Ossenfort and Bidwell. All to coddle Kyler, because poor Kyler was losing his job. And poor Kyler wasn't going to be a backup to anyone. And so, we're just going to let Kyler, do what DeAndre Hopkins did his last couple of games here. Just not play. Walk away. And look at those stretch of games that Kyler missed. What were the odds of how he was going to stand up through, starting right away with the Colts, the Packers, the Texans? I mean, you go down the list of those defenses they played. The 49ers, the Rams twice. I mean, that was a who's who of great NFL defenses that they played. The Seahawks, Kyler got to sit it out and get paid millions to just sit out the season. And I think the clincher was when he said after the Titans game about the 3rd and 8 call, when he said, "Oh, I just run the plays the coaches call." I think that was the last straw. That's all the coaches needed to hear at that point to, just say this is unacceptable. And for, I had heard the rumor. It wasn't just a rumor because it came from someone who was inside the building and was expressed to someone, that there were real strong concerns after 2023. I mean, after 2024, excuse me, that they thought that Kyler might have maxed out in the system and that, he wasn't going to get any better in it and that they better bring in like a Jacoby Brissett to have a plan B. That was, and maybe in retrospect, that's maybe why they traded for Ritter, thinking that even then, we're not really convinced Kyler's, going to be good in this offense. So, it maybe even goes way back to that. So, but anyway, this is, here's my theory on it, and I'll ask Kyle. My theory is, and all along, I had heard from a very close source that Kyler scrubbed his socials because he wanted out of Arizona. He wanted to be traded to the Broncos or the Cowboys, one of the two. Two great defenses with great wide receiver groups. That was his, priority. And, I think that, those teams didn't offer. And teams like the Colts, there were a few teams in there. The Texans back then were making inquiries.
I think you'd mentioned the Panthers, if I remember, too, back then.
Yeah, I think the Panthers were in on that too. And I think that Kyler wanted no part of those guys. And so the more the summer went without a trade, and then with Bidwell caving, which at the time, it was so obvious to me, if he were to cave in to this with a divided locker room, the message it would send to the entire organization is basically an F you to everyone. I mean, we're just going to condone it. Not only condone it, we're going to reward it, this kind of behavior. I mean, it's so easy to predict that. And people are like, oh, no, we had to do it. He's great. He's a superstar. He's a franchise quarterback. And, that kind of reaching. But you have to understand the context here, too. Is I don't think he's ever had any respect for the Cardinals. And some would say we can understand why. But wait a minute. For a while there, he had J.J. Watt. The Cardinals were cooking. He had J.J. Watt in the building. He had Zach Allen. He had guys playing. We had a playoff caliber team and a team that was going to contend, supposed to contend until the whole thing got blown apart in that off season. But I think, that year was the last of Kyler's Pro Bowls. When he went to the Pro Bowl, everybody told him how the Cardinals suck and he ought to get out of there. And put it on the Cardinals and not his awful performance against the Rams and his awful performance down the stretch in that year. It was really, really difficult to watch. So, and then the homework clause was a poison pill that just did everything in. And once you add that in there, a classic quid pro quo. We'll give you the money, but you better, do more homework. This just shows you how Michael Bidwell poisons the water in virtually everything he touches. So, for those who are, blaming Bidwell on this, he's certainly culpable. But Kyler himself needs to be accountable for he signed the contract. He took it. He took the money and then showed up in an easy money shirt to collect it. I mean, so, it was unfortunate, but here's the thing. If you lose confidence and, sort of respect in the person who's hiring you and the organization, you're going to play well? You're going to suck it up and sacrifice for the team? Now, to Kyler's credit, he did all the right things during his rehab. Once he realized, I'm, no one's going to trade for me now. I got to, reshape my brand. He tried really hard to come back, and he rehabbed, impeccably, and he played hard when he got back. But it was tough for him to sustain whatever focus he had in games. And I think deep down inside, it was part of it was the homework clause and all the sort of taking down of Kyler by the media and undressing, and it took a toll. Now, I mean, he was basically given an 11-game hiatus to regroup, which is still just unfathomable. But the reality, right? So, and now, he wants out. He wants another chance somewhere else. And I'm hearing he wants to go to the Vikings, and who wouldn't, you know? And I don't know if that'll happen, but I do know, I feel like pretty certain that in light of his contract and in light of, you know, these stats, if you look deeper, his passing has regressed since Cliff Kingsbury left the building, immensely. And people still want to blame Cliff, and they still want to blame Pep Singh, and they want to blame Kyler's the problem, not the coaches. All right. And we saw it in how he comported himself under pressure. We saw it in the kind of throws he tried to make repeatedly that were errant and you know, thrown off schedule, off timing, and whatnot. So, you know, now, I mean, all this talk about, oh, the Jets will trade a third round. They're not going to trade a third round for Kyler Murray. They're not going to trade anything for Kyler Murray. And no, neither is anyone else. And here's the other thing. Let's flip this down, Kyle, and have you read the weather scenarios that Warren Sharp presented. This was eye opener too. Is that, you know, for teams like in Cleveland, you know, the Browns are going to sign him. Teams like that are weather teams have to take a look at this. Oh, first, yeah, here we go. So read this.
Okay, so from 2022 to 2025, post contract, there were 41 games, 23 were at home, 18 on the road, and 6 were in domes, which means 12 outdoor games. He ranked last in the NFL in passing during those outdoor games. Only played one game with a temperature below 45 degrees, which was Carolina in December 2024, which the Cardinals lost. Only one game with 15 plus mile an hour winds, the Cardinals lost. And only one game with precipitation, which was at the Packers in October 2024, which the Cardinals lost.
Wild. And if anyone does more digging, look at these struggles with the draft pick wide receivers. The Cardinals have drafted 7 receivers in Kyler's time here. Has he clicked with any one of them in a major way?
No, and you've talked about that before. No.
So go ahead, read these.
Yeah, so 7 receivers drafted during his 7 seasons. Andy Isabella, 3 seasons, 447 yards, 3 touchdowns. Akeem Butler never made it to the team. Keyshawn Johnson, 2 seasons, 360 yards, 1 touchdown. 2021, Rondale Moore, 3 seasons, 997 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2023, Michael Wilson, 3 seasons, 114 targets, 58 catches, 51% completion, 764 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then with Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 seasons, 148 targets, 82 catches, 55% completion percentage, 1,191 yards, 10 touchdowns. And then obviously Tajon Palmer, who hasn't made it to the active roster, except for, I think, with Jacoby at the end.
So, Kyle, what do you make of that? You've got, is this for lack of talent? Isabella is a speedster. Rondale Moore, speedster. Michael Wilson, we've seen what happened when, someone can throw him the ball accurately plus 10 yards. Marv, I mean, is the common denominator here Kyler, or is it lack of talent?
Well, the talent certainly isn't prime DeAndre Hopkins or Hollywood Brown, which have been the best connections Kyler's had throughout his career. But it's not like the Packers did for years with Aaron Rodgers, where they just never invested in the wide receiver position. I mean, These are, Michael Wilson's an NFL receiver. Marvin Harrison, hasn't been a star yet, but is clearly an NFL caliber X.
Right.
We know about Rondale Moore, slot guy. Andy Isabella, obviously was not a great draft pick, but certainly he's still hanging around in the NFL somewhere. I think he was on the practice squad for, I want to say, the Texans last year. Yeah. So, he's still hanging around in the NFL at this point. I mean, I'll say this. It hasn't been an elite crop of receivers that they've brought in, but they certainly haven't just ignored the position entirely. I mean, that's what Marvin is your number 4 pick. Rondale's your 2nd-round pick that Kyler pushed for. Michael Wilson is a 1,000-yard receiver with Jacoby Brissett. He was what, a 4th or 5th-round pick. Andy Isabella was a 2nd-round pick. Like, it's certainly not for lack of investment in the position.
Right. 2nd, 2 2nd-rounders, a 3rd-rounder, a 1st-rounder, number 3 pick. And I just think that it's been hard for Kyler to really establish and sustain a consistent chemistry with any of the wide receivers. I think the closest he came was with Christian Kirk. And that parlayed, that gave Kirk a huge contract elsewhere. But even with Kirk, it was an interesting route tree. It was a route tree that avoided all passes over the middle virtually, which was so weird. And relegated to, post corners, fly patterns, cross corners, Z outs, things like that, thrown to the outside the hash marks, So it's just weird that, and even the Hopkins scenario, I mean, the completion percentage in the really good year was not where you'd want it. And, they were on the page one game, off the page the next. And I don't know why that is, because at Oklahoma, he certainly was dialed in on his 3 top receivers there, but it didn't carry over into the NFL clearly or well enough, And so, I mean, if teams are looking at this, I mean, who has Kyler clicked with? And if we draft him, high draft picks, is he going to be able to click with him? I think it's a question mark. Now, is he capable? Can he do it? I've always said I wouldn't, underestimate Kyler on anything when he puts his mind to it. Because he's got that kind of, persona where when he really wants something, he goes after it pretty hard. So, but the point is, with all of this, is that for everyone who's been hoping for a trade, it's not going to happen. And you're going to see him be released. Now let's look at the cap ramifications. Oh my God. I mean, having gotten tooled by the Rams with Kingsbury, who, by the way, was just announced as assistant head coach, which I bet he's getting $1 million a year for. And the Cardinals are paying $6 million to watch him coach on the Rams this season, and maybe even next if he stays on. So Sam, look at that. So Gannon, whatever he's getting is DC. He gets the balance in Arizona. So, let's say he's getting $2 million. He's probably getting $3 or $4 million from the Cardinals this year. And then the Murray money is pre-March 15th. It's a 57.2 hit on the cap. Post June 1st, they can split it up, and between 2026 and 2027 at 28.6 mil. Sam, your visceral reaction?
Well, you might have to add in the next coaching staff if things go the way they usually go. And I don't feel sorry for the owner or his general manager either. I feel sorry for us.
Yeah.
I mean, just apply all that back to Kyler Murray. He had a $230 million quarterback, outplayed, replaced by a $5 million journeyman quarterback. It's franchise level failure. And the costly financial reset for Kyler's lack of growth will stagnate this team the next season. because you're right. And I said it 3-4 weeks ago. The cap hit for cutting him is going to be catastrophic. It's going to put them well over the cap. They're going to have to cut good players. And when I say good players, I have two in mind. That's Connor and Buddha, to even pay their rookie salaries. So this is just continued dysfunction. Yep, the Kyler Murray story is over in Arizona. But the franchise that created this sad, failed story is still in charge.
Yep. Kyle?
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, I think the Kyler Murray, if there was going to be a trade, it would have happened by now, or we would have heard some connection of a team to it. So I imagine it's going to be a release. Teams are either going to wait and see how the rest of the free agency crop breaks down. Like, Kirk Cousins is going to get released. Tua's probably going to get released. And then they'll make the decision on who's going to sign Kyler and who's not. I would imagine it's going to be similar to the Russell Wilson or Daniel Jones deals, where the exiting team is going to pay a bulk of the money, and so they're going to sign a pretty small contract. That would be my guess. I don't know for sure. Because if there was going to be we talked about this before. In order to get a trade, you would need multiple teams to be interested, and that second team would then make the trade to not overpay, but pay more for Kyle. Everyone who gets him is probably going to get him at a discount, but you would have them pay down a little bit of the deal, so that way, and you give up a draft pick so that the other team that's interested in him can't have him. And since we don't see multiple teams interested right now, I would imagine that's probably where it's going to go. In terms of what you were talking about, Walter, it's like, I think it's a combination of the Cardinals didn't put him in the best position to succeed. He regressed in play. He didn't stay healthy. It's a combination of everything as to why this isn't going to work out, between, the Cardinals giving him the bag and that did not work out for them. I remember that collusion case too, where not just the homework clause, where Bidwell was texting with Dean Spanos being like, well, we made sure to limit the guaranteed money for you. And that was crazy to see that come up in text messages.
Yeah.
The whole thing was just, again, the quid pro quos, then Kyler tearing his ACL, then the coaching staff change, and an offense that was fine in 2024, but, was never designed for Kyler Murray's skill set. That was always the thing. They still made it work, especially in that second year, but and then Gannon being the hire and Gannon not working out. It's just everything on down the line. I think everyone is responsible and no one is responsible, if that makes sense.
Oh, the paradox.
You can
exactly.
You could sum up this entire conversation with 2 words: Arizona Cardinals.
Oh man. Or is it Michael Bidwell?
And the Arizona Cardinals are going to select the next quarterback.
Oh,
that's frightening.
Oh.
That's frightening.
Well, hopefully it's not Bidwell who selects it. It's not Austin Ford who selects it. It's going to be Mike LaFleur who makes that decision. And, they got, that's probably a good segue for us to move on to our draft, our off-season priorities, free agency and the draft. I know people want a major rebuild of the offensive line. I don't want to quit on Adams and Gaines, and I like Josh Fryer just fine. Sometimes you think, you just can pay oodles of millions and use high draft picks on a right tackle or whatever. You're going to patch up the whole thing and it's going to be great. Offensive line play, you just need 5 guys in sync and balling. And, I saw enough with the offensive line this year in makeshift situations where I thought, I saw a lot of promise in John Gaines. I mean, he's got the physical prototype down. He was, was injured his first year, set back with the ACL. Now he's fine. And he really cut after people. Froholt's a mainstay. And then you got, Isaiah Adams, who really came out and had some really good pass pro games, which was his Achilles heel. He's a baller in the run game, so we already know we have that. But, now his pass pro, and I saw his technique improve a great deal. He's not the turnstile he was at all. He's fanning out properly. He's maintaining his base. His hand placement's good. This you can build on. And he's going to get off the ball in the running game. And then Josh Fryer, I mean, Paris Johnson Jr. said it. He said, we're getting a star. Forget the fact he wasn't drafted. He said, I know this guy through and through. The way he prepares himself, the way he plays, he said he's going to be great for us. And I saw flashes. Unfortunately for him, he had to play a ton of left tackle last year, which I think everyone would agree like he was at Ohio State. He was a right tackle and played great at Ohio State. I mean, that last year at Ohio State, he was one of two players on that offensive line who endured with Jackson, who endured that season. They had umpteen injuries to everybody else. So he played all the games, and he gave up one sack all year. And he was always a mean, nasty run blocker at Ohio State and had a reputation for that. But, people want the glamour of a, number 3 pick. When, in fact, I mean, you have to at times recognize that sometimes you can get lucky. Like, the Rams did with Puka. I mean, like the 49ers did with Brock Purdy. Who would ever predicted Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant come in and take over as quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers? They're not household names, but when you get to look at them closely, you realize, wow, someone screwed up somewhere. These guys should have got. I mean, Puka should have been a first-round draft pick, not a 5th. Purdy should have been a first-round draft pick, not a 7th. I mean, now in retrospect, those are guys you'd take in a first round. So with Josh Fryer, I think you've got something pretty special there. And I'm not quitting on Christian Jones either, who played really well at Texas and was really good at the Senior Bowl. And the Cardinals, unfortunately, every tackle comes through the door as a rookie gets played on both sides. It's sheer chaos. And I know everyone's trying to find a swing tackle. We had that all along with Beecham. We didn't need to do that with rookies. They did it anyway. And I think it retards their, progress and assimilation into the NFL. So we got to wipe out those years where they're just their heads are going crazy. And then put them in where they belong and settle them down. And I think we got a really good player there. So I think it'd be a classic mistake of the Cardinals to draft a tackle at number 3. What do you guys think? Kyle, we'll start with you first.
I tend to agree with you, although I'm in the camp of you just take whoever the top prospect available is. I haven't dove that deep in, but it seems like Arvell Reese and Ruben Bain are kind of the top 2 guys after Fernando Mendoza. So I would probably invest in pass rusher if those seem, those are the consensus 2 top picks and you're going to get one of them. I would probably go that route. I'm in favor of drafting right tackle in either that top of the 2nd round pick or that 3rd round pick. Instead of going back to the free agency just because of the value. You're about to pay Paris Johnson a bunch of money. Obviously Froholt's under contract. I think you're better off not investing big money at both of your tackle positions. That would be my kind of prognosis. So yeah, I think your draft picks should probably go to your defensive line and your offensive line. And then with the free agency dollars you have, I would look into, I don't know what's happening with James Conner, but you're probably going to need another running back, whether that's Conner or somebody else. You're going to need a running back. You're going to need a slot receiver, whether that's bringing back Greg Dortch or going to the receiver well. I would use the free agency money on those position groups. I don't have the Pro Football Focus grades up for the wide receiver position, so I don't know exactly which slot receivers are available. I know what's his name? Khalif Raymond's available. Jawan Jennings kind of plays the X now, but he used to play the slot for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel. There's some options available. If you want to just bring back Greg Dortch, go for it. But I would use the free agency money on those positions and then the draft picks on the offensive and defensive line.
Nice. Sam?
Well, I agree with Kyle on the names that he threw out.
Yeah.
And given the lack or none of any real free agent money, they better hit these draft picks. They better be immediate contributors to this team. And given our defensive coordinator, you need to give him some talent to work with.
Definitely.
I think with a couple well-placed players, and we're going to need a safety because, again, I think Buddha's gone. And I like Reese. I like Baines. And I think those guys might be the catalyst to really make this a game-changing defense. We definitely need some offensive line help. We don't have the money to spend, and I spend on an offensive lineman. So we have to get someone in the draft in the later round who can contribute and grow. And I agree with you, Walt. I was not very impressed with the growth and development of our offensive line. The Jonah Williams, again, you left it up to our GM to vet talent and bring in a free agent to improve the line, and Jonah Williams was an absolute disaster. So we have to hit on these players, and I think keeping Fry, regardless of the bit of a pullback last year, I think that's a good move for continuity, and I agree with you. Continuity and consistency develops a coordinated offensive line, and that's what we need. And it'll.
Yeah. The cap situation might be better than you think, actually, because they're at about $30 million now. And when there are going to be several cap adding cuts, starting with James Conner, which
There has to be.
Yeah. And I'm hoping they'll restructure James. I don't want to lose him. And I think he probably would be amenable to that. And, instead of get his figure down, but guarantee it going into the season or something like that. And I think he'll be fine with it. And then, I think that Dalvin Tomlinson contract's got to come off the books.
Oh, yeah.
Try to reshape with him. I think Baron Browning's got to come off the books. There are a number of Akeem Davis Gaither is owed like $5 million. No, you can't go there with that. There's going to be, I think they're going to add about 30 more million, which means, if there's a right tackle to add in free agency, it's Jermaine Illuminor of the Giants, who the Cardinals have been interested in for a few years. And his spot rack estimated yearly salary at his age now is about $9 million. Very affordable for us. So if we want to get him on like a 2-year deal, and keep grooming Josh Fryer as a swing tackle or whatever, that's fine. And that gives you a veteran option there. But going those right tackles, they're not BPAs at 3. Malgoa is a beast of a guy. He's fantastic, but he's going to have problems with speed rushers in the NFL when you watch his technique. He's a little stiff. He doesn't have the kind of bend you want, like a Penei Sewell has, some of the real dandies. You got to be able to get down on your haunches and really be able to bend and steer. And, I think that's why certain scouts are thinking that Malgoa should get kicked into guard where he is brilliant in a phone booth. I mean, and that's like once he gets you in a phone booth, you're cooked. And then I just don't think that they're top 10 prospects in this draft. And so the ones that I tweeted out yesterday, I said, let's not get this mixed up. I mean, it's for me, it's 3 players, and you're going to get one of them. It's Fernando Mendoza, it's Ruben Bain, and it's David Bailey. 14.5 sacks, 80 pressures. He is stunning coming off that edge. Now, what's really cool about Ruben Bain is the comp on him is Brandon Graham. And if anyone knows anything about Brandon Graham, it's Nick Rallis, who coached him in Philadelphia to his best season in 2022. I mean, Graham had like 14 sacks, 55 pressures, and guess who he was opposite of? A guy named Josh Sweat. I mean, Bain would be, I think, really great pick for us. And here's what I theorize. I think Bain I think Bain has been told by the Cardinals, you're not getting past 3. And I think they did that with Marv. I really do. I think, so if you want, don't go to the combine. You're wasting your time. You're going to go top 3, guaranteed. You're probably not going to go 1, because we know that. Now, the question will be the Jets. And it's quite possible the Jets will hop on Bain, although they have 2 really good edge rushers already in Jermaine Johnson and the kid McDonald, the 4th from Iowa State. I mean, those 2 kids really get after it on the edge. And I think the Jets would probably be really wise to draft Caleb Downs of Penn State, of Ohio State, who's the premier quintessential NFL big nickel that you need in today's game. And that's a player that would really interest me.
I was gonna say, the question also is, could they trade the pick though?
Oh fuck. If we trade the pick again, I'm just going to turn the fucking TV off.
No. I'm not saying the Cardinals. I'm saying the Jets.
To me,
I'm saying the Jets trade the pick. So someone who wants Bain.
Bless you. Oh, sorry.
No, not the Cardinal. No, I'm saying if the Jets, who have 8,000 first round, if the Jets, someone wants Bain and jumps the Jets.
Bless you. Thank God. Well, the problem was yesterday, Monty was a wreck yesterday. He just can't. I mean, first of all, he's trying to sell people on, Connor and I talk frequently on the phone. So immediately a text went out, a viral tweet went out saying like, no, we've been told that Kyler and Monty haven't talked in weeks. So, and I can almost guarantee that. Kyler's not talking to Monty right now at all.
Nope.
He wants out. They want out. He's just waiting till March 15th when he'll be emancipated from the Cardinals. So, and he doesn't really want to get traded because then he can pick whoever he wants. So, and then Monty, said to everyone, well, who knows if we're even going to pick at 3? Oh, frickin' A. If you do this again, the major reason why everyone's mocking a tackle to the Cardinals at 3 is they said this guy did it before, passing up on Will Anderson. He'll do it again. And, if he does, he's out of his frickin' mind. I mean, so pave the way with that by getting Illuminor in as a free agent, so we know we have a right tackle, that everyone will calm everyone down and go and get the BPA. Now, here are the BPAs, all of them. There are 5 of them. Mendoza, Payne, Bailey, Downs, and Love. Those guys are the blue chips of this draft. Reese doesn't pass the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour rule on the edge. And so that's a mystery. And why Ohio State didn't play him exclusively on the edge is also a mystery. Now, given he's got all this talent and everything, and he's a top 10 pick, but he's not, I don't believe he's a top 5 pick. In fact, his linebacker mate, Sonny Styles, oh my, I would almost have him at 6 on this list. Sonny Styles is Fred Warner, a taller version of Fred Warner. I mean, and maybe a better tackler. So, he's a guy. I mean, if the Cardinals drafted Sonny Styles, I'd be out of my mind excited. He is fantastic. He rarely misses a tackle. He's great in coverage, both zone and man. He's got speed. He's got instincts. He's got it all. But so my tweet was, draft, don't screw it up. Stay at 3 and get one of these 3 players, Mendoza, Bain, or Bailey, period. So we'll see what happens. I think I was with, I really love what Sam said about getting us a pass rush, because we haven't had it. Only 30 sacks last year, awful. Was 3rd worst in the NFL. Ever since Gannon got on board, with all his pass rush talk, we were bottom of the barrel in sacks every year. And that's got to change, or else we're going to still get 40 bombs dropped on us left and right. And we also need a slot corner, which now can lead us to a question that Jace asked. He wanted to know who our favorite free agent target would be. Now, I gave 3, 1 for offense, 1 for defense, 1 for special teams. You guys, what do you think? Let's ask that question to you. Sam, what do you think? Who's your favorite? Or give us a couple names you really like.
Well, I don't want the Cardinals to draft a quarterback in 26. I don't think they have the in-house talent to vet quarterback. I like the quarterback options in 27. So I'm looking at Jacoby Brissett retaining his quarterback position, but I think he has to compete for it. So I like Marcus Mariota to come in at a cheap contract, maybe a 1-2 year deal to come in and compete for the job and be a solid backup.
Wow, I like that. I like Mariota.
Yeah, I do too.
I really do.
Yeah,
he's tough. He's got the package that Mike LaFleur talks about.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really cool thought there. Kyle, who's your guy?
Well, they got to solve the running back position some way, somehow. So if you bring back James Conner, if you want to bring back James Conner, if not, I would at least throw an offer out there for Kenneth Walker. He's so good, so
Right.
fun.
Right.
Like I said, the slot receiver position you got to address. Just at a first glance, there's not a ton of great options in free agency. I mean, there's, Debo Samuels, Jawan Jennings, Khalif Raymonds. Like, there's not a ton of like great slot guy. De'Ami Brown, it looks like, is maybe available, but at the cornerback position, you can get a couple of good young guys who I think their original teams would like to keep, but also might not be able to afford in free agency. Some guys like, again, I'm not saying slot necessarily. You can move Melton around and stuff, but Roger McCreary, Josh Joby, Najee Johnson is available.
Yep.
Cam Taylor-Britt is available. There's a lot of young corners that are going to hit free agency that I think would be nice additions for the Cardinals as well. So I would say running back, slot receiver, and another corner would be their biggest free agent priorities.
All right, great segue into what my choices were. On offense, I want Illuminor of the Giants. Even though, I just want to settle that position down and be 2 deep and maybe even 3 deep because I still like Christian Jones. But that, I think, it would be a really good move. And I don't think it'll be that expensive to pull off. And I'm hearing the Giants want to move off from Illuminor to save that money for other things. So that would be good to me. You just nailed my my defensive guy, Roger McCreary, the slot corner for the Rams, who I love this kid. And here's my thing, and I've been tweeting this out. We gotta abandon these uber soft zones and do what big boy defenses do and come out playing man on teams. And our problem with that is that for too long, because we've been running zones, we've been able to hide. It's in part because we had to hide Mac Wilson as a man cover in the middle on running backs, Will Johnson, Garrett Williams, Buda Baker. I mean, these guys, are not good in man coverage. So what you do with Buda is you make him a floater and you blitz him a lot. And and I don't know whether I'm hearing that the Bears are interested in Buda and that they might offer a 3rd or 4th round pick. I'm hearing that. Maybe Tyler Badgett is part of the package for Buda because I know the Cardinals have expressed interest in him as a contender for with Jacoby. He's a fascinating player to me, and it's interesting to me that they've kind of looked at him pretty highly. There's some plus to him that is really attractive. But anyway, getting back, Roger McCreary, we now need to start playing our guys who can play man. Max can play man. Elijah Jones can play man. And we got to add a couple more man type players. And here's my plan was to get McCreary and then double down in round 2 with Keontae Scott. Zach Ertrich's, MVP of the 2nd and 3rd. And he was a key to the Miami defense in addition to their pass rush, was that how Etheridge used him in the slot as a sticky cover, but then mixing it up with blitzes from the slot. Keontae Scott was awesome. And I think very worthy of a day 2 pick. And hopefully, they'll be in a position to get him earlier and rather than risk losing him later because he's pretty special. And I think if you combine those 2 elements, amp up the pass rush and amp up your coverage ability in man, we got a shot. And that's the other reason why I want them to start Cody Simon, who won a Rose Bowl MVP, defensive MVP, because of the way he covered Jeremiah Love. He's got the speed and the range to do that. Plus, he showed us his step-up instincts in that 12th tackle game he had in Week 17. I mean, he did that a lot at Ohio State too. In that championship natty game, between the tackles, he and the rest of them limited Love to 3 yards on 4 carries. The leading rusher for them was the quarterback, Leonard. I mean, they did it. When you look back at that game, what they did defensively to Notre Dame in that game was just unbelievably great. How they clamped down on Love. And they don't do that without Cody Simon. So I love him there. What they do with Mac, I was hoping they'd change to a 4-3 to put Mac on the outside linebacker spot. Weak side outside linebacker. It's perfect for him. I love Mac Wilson, the leader, the baller. But at Mike, the same thing with Kaiser. You got to get to those wheel routes, or Shanahan and McVay are going to nail you every time on that when you need them. So moving Mac to a more ideal spot for his talents would be a good move, I think. So, and then my special teamers, Blake Gillikin, bring the island back and do the 3-year tour again with him. He's a dandy. And I like what Houck did when he came in. I thought he handled himself pretty well. And Gillikin's Chad Ryland's favorite holder, and that matters. So, all right. Lastly, we want to talk about tanking. Hearing a lot of chit chatter from Cardinal fans, and even Kyle Odegaard, who's urging the Cardinals to tank in 2026. And before I go into my rant, I'm going to poll the panel on your thoughts about the Cardinals tanking in 2026. We'll start with Kyle.
Well, I'll say this. Tanking has been proven to help acquire talent in the past. At the same time, I ain't caring about tanking teams. I can't root for losers. I can't watch losers. I'm not gonna watch teams that tank. In terms of the Cardinals tanking for 2026, why? Like you just went through this. Why is Monty Austinfort in charge of another tank if there's such this pressure for him, for Mike LaFleur? I just don't I wouldn't understand why they would tank other than just acknowledging your team sucks. And if you're acknowledging your team sucks, why is Monty Austinfort going into what is essentially a contract year with a team that in February you've already concluded can't compete? That part doesn't make sense. I'll leave. I know where you're going to go, Walter, with the actual locker room stuff of it. And I tend to agree with you on most of it, but I don't want to really step on your point. But at least for the very least, hey, if you tank and you get the number 1 pick and it turns into the next Peyton Manning, I guess you would justify tanking as a fan. But in the process, I don't feel like it's worthwhile. And it's the same thing. The biggest sign to a well-run organization is not what draft pick you get. It's about the people who run your organization. Tanking is not a necessity to winning. Having a well-run organization and good people in charge is a necessity to winning. And I feel like those things often get conflated as well, if we're not competing, we got to go to the bottom. But more often than not, it's just about how well-run your organization is. The Seahawks only had 1 top 10 pick, and it was one they acquired in a Russell Wilson trade. It wasn't like they tanked their way, or I think maybe Abraham Lucas was the 9th pick. But either way, they didn't have a top 8 pick. except for the one they traded Russell Wilson for with the Denver Broncos as part of their rebuild. So well-run organization is what leads to success, not tanking.
Well said. We'll document that. Because if you look back at the teams that are successful, none of them have tanked. So except the way back when with the Colts with Manning. That's so long ago. I think in modern day football, it's going to be tough to win for anybody who does that. But
yeah, anyone who wins a Super Bowl, yeah. I mean, you can be like the Lions have had their best run by tanking, but the Lions haven't won anything of significance.
Yeah. Sam?
There's no crying in baseball. Tanking is unfortunately the playbook in the NBA, but tanking in the NFL is virtually impossible, and it is punishable. The 26 Cardinals are going to struggle not by design, but due to poor player development, critical holes at key positions, another young, inexperienced coaching staff installing new schemes and culture. On top of that, they're facing 6 games in the NFC West and the league's 4th toughest schedule. These factors alone make losses inevitable, but they will come organically from structural and developmental weaknesses, not from any intentional tanking. And that's the cold facts for 2026.
Yeah. And I remember you saying that last time we talked, and I think you're probably right, but I'm still holding out hope that somehow the team finds an identity on both sides of the ball this year that we haven't had before, and that it translates into at least a modicum of success that builds hope. But asking players to tank is the most fucked up thing imaginable. I mean, this is their livelihood. And I just leave you with this thought. The thought that's been pestering me since I heard about Rondale Moore. In his last season in Arizona, he was asked to tank, or they were treated that way. Losses were fine. Oh, we're going to fix it someday. And, that whole thing was such a debacle and so disgusting. And hearing week after week, a close game gets you the perfect loss. And then having the rare chance to beat the Seahawks, which we haven't done in ages, and just basically pissing that away in order to tank. And then, we tanked and, it hasn't worked out yet, has it? And there's a karma to this, I believe. I don't think it's a slam dunk for the Raiders, by the way, who were kind of tanking there. They took Max Crosby off the field or whatever. He didn't want to. We'll keep a close eye on that. Because I don't think that scenario with them is a slam dunk at all. And I don't think that Mendoza's going to come in looking like Sam Darnold in year one. There's going to be some growing pains there. Although I love this kid. If the Cardinals could trade up and get him, I'd do it like that. But, it's going to take a while for him to assimilate into the NFL. And they're going to have to build the team around him and this and that. So, but, what you're asking players to do, once you ask players or give them the impression, if you're a coach or a GM and you give them the impression that losing is okay, like it's going to get us ahead, you screw the entire organization. And most of all, you've screwed the players. And, out of respect to them, you play to the finish. And you play hard for 60 minutes every game. We've lost that the last 3 years. The tremendous irony is our offense didn't quit. And yet fans don't want to count the stats. It's unfreaking believable. Like they shouldn't matter because the game was over. Well, why was the game over? because the defense quit. The defense tanked again in 3 years. And what that proves is once a tanker, you could always be a tanker, especially when you know your GM was supporting it, your head coach was supporting it. And, look at the disparity between how Jonathan Gandon handled those losses week after week. And while standing there on the sidelines, just, like daydreaming and doing nothing. Just come in after the game and say, oh, wow, well, there were some positives here or there. And we're really, thought we played hard and well and, bullshit. I mean, look at the disparity of Dan Campbell. Has Dan Campbell ever tanked a game in his life? No frickin' way. Would Dan Campbell ever tank a game? Now, post-game, when Lions lose, the guy is a freaking mess. That's what you want in a head coach. That's exactly what you want. You know why he's a mess? Not only is he blaming himself and the coaches and stuff, which he always does, it kills him to see the pain in his players' faces. He was a player. He knows the sacrifice. And the bodily harm these players put themselves, potential that they put themselves, the sacrifices they're making, and the hard work, the payoff of that has to be winning. I mean, when it's a double pain and devastation when you put all that effort in and then you have to suffer a loss, it's really tough. And the wear and tear, mental tear of that on a player. And for the players to feel like pawns in some, front office guy's fantasy dream of tanking for a player, it's just, the disconnect that causes, the lack of respect that it causes, and rightfully so. It's just, I don't think you can come back from that. That's why I was hoping this year, whoever they hired, they'd give a clean slate to. I wanted to wipe it all out, get it all out of there. Instead, this is a Bidwillian, hire the guy who will just give you the, you can manipulate. I have high hopes from Mike LaFleur. Although lately, some of the things he's saying and some of the things, the decision to keep Rouse is just unthinkable to me. And I haven't seen them hire any senior advisors with NFL experience on defense either. And they went and made the defensive coaching staff even younger in experience. How that was even remotely possible. And yet it's happened again. So, like Sam says, this may organically just kind of happen because the coaching is not up to par and the play. And, what this meant to me with Rallis again, too, is are we now going to see more soft zones? Is it just going to be a continuation where we'll see zone cover guys and we won't play man-to-man? I've never seen 3 years of a single defense where a defensive coordinator didn't, in at least one game, take his best cornerback and said, see that guy, Justin Jefferson? You're covering him the whole game. Never happened in 3 years. It's unthinkable in the NFL. It's unthinkable. And so now we have to run this back and see it again. Guys like Elijah Jones, talents like that. Imagine what he feels. We know what Max Melton felt. And others, K-Trell Clark. We don't have defensive cover dogs. And we got to get them. Look at the Super Bowl. Go back. Look what Seattle did to that Patriots offense. They were like butter on corn on all the receivers and in Drake May's face. That was one of the more brilliantly coached defensive games, Super Bowls I've ever seen. And they covered you. Cardinals under Rouse, they don't cover you. And so what's going to happen? I mean, why wasn't that just dealt with? And then, of course, the rumor came back that Jonathan Gannon, through Matt LaFleur, was urging Mike LaFleur to keep Rouse and that he's on point with everything. That to me is so disgusting. Someone asked me, well, the other day on X, asked me, well, now that Matt LaFleur is campaigning for the Cardinals to draft to sign Malik Willis, doesn't that change your opinion about Willis? And I had to be honest. I wrote back. I said, there's nothing about Matt LaFleur that I either like or trust. Not a thing. And now that he's got Gannon in there, I mean, that decision to hire Gannon as your defensive coordinator, really? And now they're going to influence what the Cardinals are doing and bring back a defense that by design is passive. In today's NFL world, it's just not going to work. And coach it with inexperienced coaches makes it even worse. So, this may unfortunately happen organically. I hope it doesn't. I hope Zach Etheridge comes in there and says, look, here's how we played at Miami. You guys are missing the boat. Because their system, the way it's taught and coached, is awesome. I mean, we could adopt a system like that. And, plus now we've got Buda Baker's Washington. Kyle, can you give me the name of the defensive line coach?
Oh, for the Cardinals?
Yeah. It's evading me right now, but they hired him. He was the Texas defensive coordinator, and he was Buda's defensive coordinator at Washington. So, and I think that's a really good addition, although he has no NFL head coaching experience. He's coached some really good defenses and one of the things he really likes is a big nickel, which is what all off season you've been hearing me say, I want a piece of that, like what they're running in Seattle. And the big nickel isn't passive. It's the other way. So
it's Pete, what is it? Kwiatkowski? I don't know how you pronounce it. Kwiatkowski?
Yeah. Kwiatkowski, I don't know. Let's call him Coach K.
There you go.
He's got
he was Washington co-defensive, I guess just defensive coordinator from 2014 to 2020, and then Texas defensive coordinator from 2021 to 2025.
Right. So, yeah, that's where to finish my thought about tanking is that, to tank is to set your team back for years. There can be no on or off button in football. You either play on all the time or you're not playing. You're not going to survive. We were taught that as little kids in Pop Warner. You either bring your A game every time you play in that game, or you're going to get hurt or you're going to lose. And it's pretty simple. You can't be flipping switches. Like, I'm not going to – that was my big bugaboo about Kyler. I'm not going to run today. I don't feel like it. What? I mean, there's only one way to play, and that is all out, all day, all long, all season, all game. That's the only way. It's a Larry Fitzgerald mantra. Why was Larry so good? kept himself in tip-top shape. He trained his ass off. That's why he hardly ever got hurt. And then, you had the great hands. You had the rack ability. You had the toughness. You had the guy could leverage any defensive back ever. And then the attitude and the teamwork. Those are the things the Cardinals need to emulate. Would Larry Wilson ever tank a game? I mean, Larry Fitzgerald and Larry Wilson and
Right.
Larry. Never. So, parting shots. Sam the Man.
Well, one more point about intentional tanking in the NFL. In 22, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, merely suggested to Brian Flores that they might tank. And as a result, Goodell nailed Ross. He suspended him, he fined him, and they forfeited draft picks. Intentional tanking isn't even an option for Michael Bidwell, especially given Bidwell's tenuous personality and reputation in the league. So this whole concept of intentional tanking in the NFL, in my opinion, is just pure BS. And I just like to also say, regarding all the conversation about drafting a quarterback in 26 in the later rounds, or heaven forbid using one for anyone other than Mendoza, we have to be patient. This team has a lot of holes. We've got to get things fixed up. And there isn't the talent pool in the 26th draft for a quarterback vetted by this front office who's going to get this team what it needs. And that is, more than anything, a ready-made franchise quarterback. And those quarterbacks, there are 3 of them, are in the 27 draft. Regardless of talent level, the quarterbacks available in 26 don't have enough experience in college. They don't have enough starts. Historically, you need at least 30 starts in college to be able to put enough tape to be evaluated and prove yourself ready for the NFL. You don't have that in 26. So we'll probably get into draft picks and quarterbacks in another show, but that's my parting shot for today.
Thanks, buddy. Little Rock.
Yeah, the one other point that I would bring up is, like, intentional tanking historically produces the best results. I won't say wins or whatever, when the players who do the losing aren't the players who are there for the winning. There are giant roster turnovers, usually changes in coaching staff, changes in general manager. Those are organizational clearouts, which the Cardinals just went through an organizational clearout when they got rid of Steve Keim, they got rid of Cliff Kingsbury, they got rid of Vance Joseph, they got rid of all the players except for Kyler Murray and a couple others like Budda Baker and Kelvin Beachum. And this team is 80%, 90% different than the team that went through the losing in 2022. So if you're telling me we're going to clear all of those guys out and bring in all new players, then I don't understand, A, why Monty Ossenfort would still have a job, and B, why they would go through that whole process just to tank it again. And look, we know the underlying issues, quid pro quos from the owner, the owner insisting on having say in personnel decisions, hiring processes, talent evaluation in certain places. Then it trickles down to, trading down in the 2023 draft and smaller, minute decisions, trading out of 34 and 35, all the little things that have happened in between that led them to this point. So I don't want to pretend like, oh, now all of a sudden, it's so bad again. Like, I get it. I understand there are underlying issues with the organization. And, like Sam said, a franchise quarterback can sometimes make all of those things look a little less bad, right? Whether it's Joe Burrow in Cincinnati or whatever team you want to point to that has a poor ownership group, but the quarterback makes it look a little bit better. I get all that stuff. It kind of happened with Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins in 2021, right? When they were 8-1 and it looked like, they were going to win the NFC West. So I get all that stuff. I get the underlying issues, but just because you think a quarterback is going to change your fortunes doesn't necessarily mean A, you're going to be in a position to get that quarterback, or B, the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of having to get the quarterback and then reinvent your entire roster with a new general manager and a new coach and everything else. So the timelines are off, and that's the underlying issue of all of this stuff. Not the tanking, not the roster construction. The timelines are off, and the people in positions of power are not willing to relinquish that power or hire people who are qualified or best qualified across the league to put you in a position to succeed. And that's the underlying issue more than the tanking or the roster or anything else.
Thanks, pal. Yeah. I think for the sake of the respect of this, of the coaching staff, they better put their best stuff forward. Because once players lose confidence in their coaches, we saw what happened last year. And they got to be able to take their coaches seriously. If they think their coaches are just as fine with a loss, or sees the virtue of losing to get a draft picks, what kind of respect does that give the players in their coaches or confidence? And I think if you poll the Cardinals players right now, as they say, the number one thing, particularly on that defense, is I would bet they say you're not putting us in position to succeed, in positions to do well. The system is not conducive to it. And we've, if you listen to them, hopefully, and if you get some of the, like Zach Etheridge in there and Coach K and guys with some new blood, the 49ers linebackers coach who just joined us, for a linebacker, the Chiefs, Chiefs linebackers coach who just joined us, get them in a room and get them to kind of talk about who do we want to be, what kind of identity do we want to have this year on defense, and let's craft it together and teach it together, and let's get after this thing. Let's not be this so cautious, cushiony defense that we've been the last 3 years. Let's flip the script. Then I'd be like, let's see what happens here. I can always put up with a loss when I know my guys have played to their hearts out for 60 minutes. That is never, it actually builds character. When they play half speed and there just doesn't look like, they're missing tackles left and right, and no one seems to be really jiving. When a guy finally makes a good tackle and nobody goes over to pick him up, when it's just the defense is so void of the excitement that's inevitable when you're on a defense and you're playing well and you're balling together. This is so exciting. You come after people and you pick each other up and you slap each other on the helmets, get back and get up and do it again, play after play. That's the joy of football. We've lost that on defense. And I don't know how they get it back, but maybe some new blood in there from the U and from Texas and from the Chiefs are going to help. And hopefully Rouse will be open to that. So thanks for another good show. We're going to take a look at the combine. There are a couple quarterbacks I want to talk about in this draft that I find interesting. They will be on display over the next few days. As not first round picks necessarily, or unless you wanted to trade back up for Ty Simpson into the first round and jump ahead of the Rams, who are going to want to take him in the 20s. That wouldn't bother me at all. But as long as the coaches are 100% sure this is the guy we want, or they really see him as a perfect fit for what they want. So, but in the interim, enjoy the combine, enjoy the advent of free agency. I want to ask all of you, who's your favorite free agent? Like Jace asked us, enlighten us with who you're picking out. We want to know it. And in the interim, have yourselves a great week. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday on the Red Rain.